Let's face it, as Nintendo fans, we are often left slightly disappointed and scratching our heads asking why. Where is our Super Mario Galaxy 3? Why isn't Metroid out yet? Bring back the Ice Climber seriously, and what were you thinking, the Virtual Boy? Well, sit back as Sean Capri and Bobby Pauls do just that. That's right, this is If We Ran Nintendo. Now, cue the music, Maestro.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of If We Ran Nintendo. I am Bobby, the Nintendo Guru, joined by my good friend from Canada. I got two friends from Canada right now, but we're going to start with the one, and that is Mr. Capri. What is up, Sean?
Hello, I'm drinking a Diet Pepsi out of a coffee mug.
That makes sense with Mr. Happy on it. I guess that's... wow.
I like the little children's book. I don't know if anybody remembers the little Miss Chatterbox and all those little guys. I got a couple of
classic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That other voice you hear, you already heard it once today. That is our good friend Justin Masson from Nintendo Dads. What is up, Justin?
Oh man, nothing. You know, I don't have a happy cup. I have a bottle with stickers on it, water. But I'm doing awesome. I am so excited to be here and joining you guys, and also to try and figure out what other podcasts I can force Bobby into creating, randomly saying something on a podcast. Like, I know that people say I'm very influential that way, but I didn't realize that my influence was cross-border and through the median of podcasts.
It
so
is.
Everyone within the hearing of my voice, you're welcome.
This is true. Okay, so let's preference this. Let's get some people's backstory here. So, a while back, I was a guest on Nintendo Dads, and Justin came on. I think you came on the Geekcast first, and then the following week I went on Nintendo Dads. And the whole idea was, what happened was I had Justin on the Geekcast, and after, it was me, you, and Mark from Warp Whistle. Yep. And after it got done, me and Justin stayed on, and we talked for another 40 minutes or so. And in that conversation, we started going back and forth, and he's like, dude, you got a real love for Nintendo and this, that, and the other. And at the time, I was known as the Geek Guru. That's everything I did was Geek Guru. I had a YouTube channel, almost 1,000 subscribers on there and all that stuff. And that's all I did. But a lot of the content was Nintendo centric. So, and he was like, look behind you, look at your walls and all that. You definitely have a love for it and this and that. And so I get done with him, and I go downstairs, I start talking to my wife, and I go, I think I'm gonna do a brand change. I'm gonna change. I'm gonna become the Nintendo Guru. Not because that's the name I kind of wanted to. I wanted to have Nintendo in it for something, but I kept the Guru because I didn't want to confuse too many people. And so that's the way I went. So I tell Justin, I'm gonna do a brand change, this, that, the other. I'm gonna change the channel. I'm gonna announce it on your show. So when I go on his show, he does this community spotlight where they spotlight the people, and he starts talking about me before I talk. And in that, he says he's got a bunch of different podcasts he does. He has one called the Geekcast, that it's all geek stuff, and then he's going to start one on Nintendo. That is what you said. Go back and play it back. And I was like, or he has one coming for Nintendo, and I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm listening to it and I'm like, do I have one coming for Nintendo? I don't remember saying this. And I'm like, oh my God.
I was extending an olive branch to join you in a new podcast on Nintendo stuff. Instead, you went with this other Yahoo.
I took your place!
That's what happened!
What are you doing here?
Later, we figure this out, Capri. Get out of here!
I'm not even supposed to be here!
You didn't tell me this. You should have told me this. But anyway... So, and as weird as it was at the same time when that happens, I'm talking to Sean about we got to do something together. I was on Sean's podcast, we the Gamercast, and we hit it off, and he came on the Geekcast, and we just had this chemistry, and I really enjoyed talking to him. And how could you not look at that face all the time?
I've talked to him a lot also now.
Yeah,
I like you guys.
It's love, man. So I was like, I got to do something. So then I went to Sean. I was like, look, I want to do a podcast, and Nintendo, something to do with Nintendo, something on the Nintendo channel, and he was like, all right, let's go, let's do this, and so that's where we went. But we did say that when we started, I was like, the first guest that we ever have on has to be Justin. We got to bring Justin on, and so...
Can I just say that now hearing the entire story, I didn't realize that Justin was actually meaning for like him to be on the show, for this to be like a collaboration for you two. I feel like this is like a high school promposal gone totally wrong. Like where Justin goes to the girl he's kind of flirting with, and he's like, you know what would be a really great idea is to like go to the prom together, or like, you know, just to go, like whatever. And then Bobby goes, yeah, that is a good idea. I think I'm gonna go ask somebody else. It's just like total backfire.
Well, the funny part was when so I guess here's where our crossed communication occurred. This may be part of this could have caused like international wars, I think, cross communication between Canada and the US. But so I assumed that when you were rebranding, I assumed you were going to come out with the Nintendo Guru podcast as basically part of that rebrand. So that was what I assumed you were doing when you said rebranding that way. So that was why I took the assumption, but ironically you had nothing built yet. And therefore, however, I would say that I think this is one of the best podcasts I have ever kind of co-created in some way
there you go.
By not meaning to.
We'll bring you as a producer or something.
There you go.
And then it has to be even worse, Sean, because then I go to the guy and I'm like, hey, we want you to do an intro for us. So he's got to be sitting there going like...
That is worse.
He's got to be like, man...
Hey, do me a favor, I need a ride to the prom. Can you drive me?
Oh, this is the best.
Yeah.
Who doesn't talk about Nintendo?
But I actually think Justin just created another podcast for you. I think that was just like a very subliminal thing right there, the Nintendo Guru podcast. I think
Yeah. Hey, you never know.
To iTunes, it publishes every Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think you've got time.
I don't have enough stuff on my plate. I might as well throw another podcast into it.
Oh my god, that is funny.
Wow.
And it's funny because I just went to Mark today, and I'm like, dude, we haven't done the Ink Strike podcast in like forever. Are we gonna do something again? And he's like, yeah. But he's getting ready. He's getting ready to get married, so he's been tied up with that stuff. But
so you're not doing that. Sounds like you got
so
time
there you
for a
go.
brand new podcast.
There you go, Justin. Be ready.
Well, Justin, do you want to give him the news about?
Yeah,
you and Sean started a podcast.
So we are. So Sean and I are. So this is official breaking news on the If We Ran Nintendo podcast. We always, we've had a lot of conversations back and forth about Americans and Canadians. So officially on your show, we're announcing that Sean and I are creating a new podcast called Neighbors to the North, which is a 10-part educational mini-series where Sean and I sit down and we break down Canadian stereotypes and myths and our culture to better make you feel informed.
Thank you. I get to learn what a double-double is at Tim.
Absolutely. Our first episode will be based in a Tim Hortons where we just sit around and talk all day,
Lord. Good God. I feel slighted now. This is horrible. Now I know how you feel, Justin. And meanwhile, Sean's just sitting pretty, man. He's getting asked out by everybody.
Yeah.
What can I say? I feel like I'd be good at Big Brother.
Yeah.
I mean,
Everybody's just coming to me. I'm like, okay, that sounds good to
me. You can follow
Let's record a podcast.
Sean. Yeah. If you're looking to do a podcast, reach out on Twitter. It's at Sean, like Sean Bean, the villain who's been killed in GoldenEye, and Capri, like the space age juice box.
That's what we
said. Like the Mustang knockoff, the Mercury Capri.
Exactly.
Good Lord.
Barry Dunn said Capri like the sun the other day.
I like that.
I think that was a good one too. All right. So let's kick this episode, all right? Normally we do shout-outs.
See you later.
We kind of had our fill of talk beforehand. Okay.
Yeah.
So you might not even realize this. I'm sure you realized it after you heard the topics. You created the topic for the show.
Yeah.
The first topic of the show is, if we ran Nintendo, when would we launch The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild? Right? Yeah. That subtitle's got to get changed. That's horrible. But that said, so when I was on Nintendo Dads the last time, Justin had said, like, Nintendo needs to launch it for the Wii U right away, and then later for the NX. So that's what I want to get into. I want to talk about, like, when is a good time to launch this game, what would be the way that we would unfold it and do it. So I'm going to start with you, Justin. I'm going to let you kind of get into this because I want to understand what your thinking is behind this and why you feel so strongly about this.
Sure. I'm going to get my full-page document notes here.
Wow.
That I've written up on this. This is a marketing strategy.
Here we go.
Settle in, folks. Grab your Diet Coke in a happy mug and settle in to see what.
I think Sean, you're being replaced right now. He is straight up trying to take your spot, man.
I know people are gunning for me, but that's what happens when you're at the top.
Someone's always going to
That's
take
what happens
this.
when you're number one. Everybody's gunning for you.
This is true. This is true.
So my approach, the very first thing I would say is this is leading to it being launched on the Wii U, and it being launched on November. I have on my calendar as 18th, which I think is the Friday. So right before Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
The typical, like right before Black Friday, that sweet spot. So here, though, is how we are going to get there.
Okay.
So in E3 2016, we start off with an at-home demo, which is pushed out to every single Wii U owner's console if they want to download it. To be able to have access to this demo, you must be signed up for the My Nintendo program.
Sean, this is more preparation than we've ever done. I think we're both replaced. This is horrible. Go ahead, keep going.
So at this point, what's going to happen is you will be pushed out a demo. Now the demo happens to do a couple things. It either has an Sean's taking notes. Either has an expiration.
I was going to just scribble a whole bunch of nonsense, and that's my plan.
It either expires by a specific date, right? So 2 weeks from now, it just self-destructs, wipes off, or it has a number of play sessions, i.e. 15. Now here's the other thing. You will be pushed out, and as I recall from E3, they showed 3 different locations, I think, or 3 different demos were playable. There were variants, right? They weren't all the exact same locations.
Yes.
They were in the same area.
It was at the Great Plateau. You could either go into the dungeons, per se, or whatever. But yes, there were 3 different areas that you could do.
So you get to have all 3 of those areas to play. That's part of this kind of bundle that's pushed out.
Mm-hmm.
So after it expires, now here's what's going to happen. Right after E3 or during E3, I'm then going to announce, by the way, it is available in November on the Wii U for you to purchase. And if you have purchased or downloaded our demo, you get a 20% off discount through the My Nintendo for you to pre-order and pre-purchase it right now. Now, if you are not a digital consumer, you can use a coupon that we're going to have printed out as well. So we've already got you plugged in. So basically, you play, there's a one-click, you can go pre-order, download it if you want to. What we're also then going to do is we're also then going to open up an online Nintendo merchandise shop starting at the end of June, or actually the end of E3, where you can go purchase all of your sweet Breath of the Wild swag, and for that, you actually get money off as well. So it's going to go to like Nintendo's storefront. It's digital. You know all those sweet hoodies, those T-shirts, everything that you were seeing. You can pre-purchase all of that right now, and it's shipped out to you in July. So all that stuff, they kind of like the stuff they push through for Mitomo. You want a physical, actual, real hoodie like that? We got you. We got you covered.
A hoodie in July only makes sense in Canada, by the way.
No, right? Like it's pretty sweet. You have some tank tops or whatever also. Now, when you do this, if you purchase it, you are going to save. Again, guys, using the My Nintendo, you're going to save 20%. You're going to save 20% on your purchase. And for orders over $50, we're also going to send you a free gift of some kind of Zelda thing in there. Included in the package that we're also going to send out to you is a specific thank you card signed by Enuma himself, saying thank you for being an amazing, person. And here's why: because it's all about the detail. It's about the little things.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what Zelda's all about: is the detail and the little things. We are then going to run a social media campaign running from July all the way until September. We're using specific hashtags and wearing your kit. You are going to be entered to get additional swag, or also maybe an autographed amiibo. One of the new amiibos that we're launching, autographed and signed by Numa and the team. So now this is going to lead us up to, we're going to do this whole campaign. We're also going to release kind of behind-the-scenes snippets on social media, like little video vignettes, to watch how it's being made, small interviews. Kind of like just keep that hype train going, right? Hype train all the way. Then in November 18th, you're going to be allowed to purchase Zelda. You can do it a couple ways. If you purchase Zelda Wii U, you will get a digital key for the NX copy. And we will also allow cloud saving.
So you're saying that if you buy it for the Wii U, you'll get it for free for the NX?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
A digital, whether you buy physical or digital, you will get a digitalized key so that when if you go to NX, you can play it right there, and it's cloud save data, so you can pick up your thing. What I'm trying to do is trying to create a movement of your Wii U players to your NX base and don't feel like they're getting screwed. Yeah. Or that they have to wait. And the reason is, for the Wii U, we want for them to purchase this game, and we kind of want this to feel like, hey, you purchased the Wii U, thank you, get some more money out of it, right? Get some more use out of it. Let's do this. Plus, they need some revenue at that holiday stream. Now, when we actually move down to the actual Zelda Wii U, we offer 4 variants of what you could purchase. So, of course, you could purchase it digitally, your choice. You could also purchase just the game, right? Just the game, in a case.
I love where this is going.
You could purchase the game. If you purchase the game, and it comes with, you can purchase the game, comes with like the access key to the NX copy plus an amiibo, one amiibo. Then you can do another bundle where it's the game, the key, and all the amiibo. Nice. And then this is what I call the Bobby Collector Edition. this is game, key, all amiibo, specific swag, art book, a documentary, and then a 30 years of making Zelda vignette or video that you have exclusive access to. We price that at about $150 American, so it's about $1,000 Canadian. And that's kind of how it works. So that's my strategy, but I do think it's critical that you release it in November of 2016 for Wii U.
Now, okay. Let's man, that was a lot. Holy crap. That was more than I expected.
There are lines with my drawings.
Oh my god. Okay.
I was starting to build out a hashtag too. I felt like that might have gone too far.
Yeah, just a tad. All right, so but let me ask you a question, because what I feel is this. I feel like this game is essential for the NX. I feel like you have to have this game be a day one launch title for the NX. Do you feel like the game loses thunder when you've put it out on the Wii U months prior to it hitting the NX?
And that's a really good question. So that's the one thing that I didn't completely solve for. That was one of the reasons why the transfer key was so important. Because what you want to do is here's the thing. There is a base of audience who are Wii U owners, and there are potential NX owners. And what you really want to do is you want to bridge that gap between Wii U to NX and kind of create a curve that goes upwards, right? So there has to be something variant that you do with the NX copy to make it worth more potentially. Or why am I buying this version?
Because I feel like the game in itself is the reason to get people, the core fans, back. Because this game is not a Zelda game that anybody's seen ever, other than my feeling, the original Zelda game. It's a true open world. It's a Fallout style game. It's what the people. It's a Skyrim. It's a Zelda Skyrim. It's what people have wanted for such a long time. I think the only thing that hurts us here is the fact that you're talking almost 6 months before we're gonna. Well, 4 months actually launch.
I guess the question is your objective? Is your objective to get more Zelda players or more NXs sold?
I think
I think
at this point the Wii U's ship has sailed, and I think at this point you need to move more NX consoles. Me and Sean talked about it one other time where we were like, "Hey, look, if you're going to piss off the fans that are here, if you're going to piss off the people that only bought or that bought the Wii U, it's a small number in comparison. So obviously, you're not looking to go out and make people angry. I get that, but I feel like you also have a business to run, and you have to push to the next level.
There's also a way to appease that group as well, right? The people who bought Wii U, who Justin, I think you're concerned with making them feel like they're being left behind. I feel like there's the entire Wii U collection of games that we currently have right now. There's probably something special that we can do there, maybe to bring forward to the NX, and then let Zelda do its thing selling.
Yeah.
selling
I
NXs.
I would disagree. I think so. I guess here's the step I would take. I agree that Zelda will sell NXs. 100% agree with that, right? But I also believe Zelda or NX with the new Mario, Galaxy 3, whatever, right? A solid first party lineup plus the Zelda game in there, that moves the console more.
See, so I think part of what our issue is we don't know what's coming.
That's exactly it. We're banking 100% on Zelda being the thing.
And that's the thing you're thinking that's all it is. Now, if you have a new Mario Galaxy or something like that, of that nature, to come down the pipeline, then obviously Zelda falls to the back burner, and you don't worry about that. So let's do this. Let's assume that we could do it two ways. I mean, obviously, it's two-way simple. It's if there is no Mario game there at launch, then we can't do your way.
Correct.
If there is a Mario game at launch, then you can absolutely do it your way, and it makes a lot of sense. Like your plan, nobody can knock that plan. That's a plan that everybody would love, and ultimately, this is about what we would do if we ran Nintendo. That's the whole premise behind it and all that stuff. I feel like I would go with what you're saying. I feel like what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I just want to make sure it doesn't make sense to us because we're just fans, and this is what we would love to see. I want to make sure that it makes sense for everybody as well. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think here's the thing, right? And I absolutely get what you're saying there, Bobby, right? And there's a like from a run, and that's why my strategy thinks of the cost, the cost of doing business, right? Because you potentially currently have Wii U owners who are frustrated and potentially they could leave, right? That's your worry point, right? Is that they actually leave because they're dissatisfied with what you're not producing. So you need to give them something. We're going to give them at a reduced rate, but we're also going to upsell them on other things, right? We're going to upsell them on the Amiibo, the Bobby Bundle package that they can purchase, the swag, right? Because now you're using them as spokespeople to walk around the streets wearing your T-shirts, social media stuff, right? You're giving them a hands-on experience. You're including them in the E3 thing. So I think you're kind of like building credibility. You're building a brand more there, and then that NX key, right? Because again, think about it. The business model is I want to get you onto NX. If I give you the NX key, as opposed to saying this game is no longer useful to you, but you've cloud saved it and you have the NX key, easy. I can put down my Wii U, these wonderful games that I have played, and pick up my NX. And oh, by the way, I can keep playing, and I have this amazing new library that's coming in. That's the bridge you want to get, right? That's 14 million bridges you want to create to bring someone there. Nintendo, no matter what, is going to have an incredibly hard time coming back from where they are currently. Right? So they are in a very difficult spot with money being allocated for the Xbox, for the PlayStation. We know those things are in the pipe. We are aware of the specs, right? And so you're going to have a hard time unless you're already a Wii or a Wii U owner to randomly pick said fan out of nowhere to basically bring them back to this console. You have to re-engage your current installation base and have them be spokesmen to bring in your individuals, right? Let me tell you why I love Zelda Wii U. Let me tell you why it's an amazing game. Did you know it's available on the NX? You should pick it up on the NX. We should do that.
See, I think there's a risk involved with that too, though, where when a game comes out initially for one system and then it moves to another system, the perception is that it's the first system's game. And so there's this effect of it's almost like a ball and chain, like dragging Zelda with a big huge Wii U dragging it through the sand, where it's not really able to pick up momentum because people see it as, oh, that was that old game that they just ported up to the NX, and that's kind of how the Wii U started, with a whole bunch of ports that were kind of past their prime. Like we've already had our time with Mass Effect 3 and with Batman Arkham Asylum, or whichever one it was.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something to consider as well. And then the other point that I would bring up is, when was the last time Nintendo had an insane amount of success with a console launch? It was with the Nintendo Wii, where we did have a Zelda launch day and date with the console, and it was tied to the previous console, where they did leave behind the GameCube supporters, and they did leave. Like I would honestly, as much as some people might have poor things to say about the Wii, now I would launch it almost the exact same way. Make the Wii U version of Zelda Breath of the Wild, make it actually difficult to find. I'm polar opposite from you, Justin. I don't mean to be contrarian, but I'm polar opposite. Like, yeah, don't even. Wii U fans are going to buy the NX no matter what. I don't think we need to evangelize them, unfortunately. Like, it's almost taking advantage of all of us, but we all know we're buying it no matter what.
Yeah.
The focus has to be on the group outside of that. And I think that if you launch the Zelda game first on the Wii U, it holds that title back big time.
I think the other thing that worries me too is I think people, like right now you have a lot of people that are very excited for the Zelda game, and it's people that don't own a Wii U, and they're like, well, when I'm buying NX day one, I'm gonna have this game. The only thing that scares me with this plan is that the fans spoil it, and all the spoilers are gonna hit, and everybody's then people are gonna be like, well, why am I gonna play this? This makes no sense to put all my, we don't know the whole true crux of the game right now. The game, if the game was similar to Fallout 4, then you make your own storyline up, and it doesn't matter at the end of the day what you do. You have a mission that you can go after, or you can do all these other missions and just lose your life in it.
Now I'm going to be super Canadian here and say the part of Justin's plan that I absolutely love and I think still works regardless of when the game is actually launched, the demo early for Wii U fans would be tremendous. Get people with their hands out, like, everywhere, not just at Best Buys, not at, like, just Nintendo World in New York. Get people who have access to a Nintendo system, let them play it, get them excited about it, and then almost have, like, that thing at the end that says, when you get it on NX, these are the types of things that you can experience. Or when you buy on Wii U, you also will have cross-buy.
And see, but
it launches the same day.
Yeah, and I appreciate you being very Canadian and supportive and liking that show.
But you're gonna shit all over it.
No, I agree with it. And so when I mapped like page 1 of this is I think page 2 or 3 of my plan. That was originally what I was thinking, but the concern is
master plan.
You build so much momentum at E3 because of your hands-on experience with it to then be like, like you're just like primed, right? Like you're and then for them to be like 9 months. 9 months.
That's the killer.
Something you've never played before. Like that's the killer part of it. I understand what you're saying about even the dilution of when it was done on the GameCube and the Wii U. Like I get it. Like you're any way you cut it, you are splitting where those sales are.
Yeah.
Right? And that's for good or for bad, right? Because here's the thing. With the NX, because it's an NX game, can I charge you an extra $15 more? Right? We're starting to see some pricing models from Nintendo, which makes me think they may be upping their prices very soon across the board.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a price differential there versus maybe a price for a Wii U. There's a lot of those kind of skews that kind of get a little bit weird. But whenever you split the basis, whenever you split that game between two consoles, you have an odd messaging. Right? Because if you look at like, oh, well, Zelda didn't sell well on the NX. Well, it didn't sell well on the NX because the other half of it sold on the Wii U, or another quarter of it sold, right? So those numbers get so skewed that it's challenging to actually say where the impact is. The other choice is like, hey, we're not doing it for Wii U at all. Cut it. Wholly cut it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you just go NX. Because those numbers are pure numbers, pure data, and you can actually like do attach rate. We sold 4 million Zelda. We sold 4 million NX. Boom.
Now,
maybe do it as a bundle.
Twilight Princess.
That's part of my plan that I have come up with since you started rating off your plan.
I was going to say that too. But so Twilight Princess ultimately is the #1 seller of Zelda games, correct? Am I right with that?
Let me find out.
For some reason, I keep thinking that was the best-selling Zelda game of all time, was Twilight Princess. It might have been Ocarina as well, but I know that the original Zelda sold a lot. I don't think Zelda 2 sold that well. Maybe, man, why am I...
I'm looking for you right now, Bobby.
Twilight
Princess on the Wii. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Twilight Princess on the Wii sold 7.26 million.
Wow. That's a lot.
Okay. So it is the best seller.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, GameCube sold 1.32, totaling 8.58 million sales.
Holy cow! Now, and when you look at the way we are right now, I feel we're very similar to the way things were when Twilight Princess launched. The GameCube didn't sell that well. I think it was 24 million units total. And they were moving into a new launch, and that's when they were like, okay, we're going to split it and we're going to do it. And if I'm not mistaken, it hit the Wii first, and then a month later went to GameCube. I don't think you can do that here. I think you have to do it day in launch for both consoles if you do that way. I'm just thinking, man, I get, it's crazy because I get what you're saying, and I like what it's saying, but I'm just stuck on this. How does it affect the NX? And ultimately that's the future, and that's where you're going. It's a different story if the Wii U's staying. You know what I mean? Then it's like, okay, but the Wii U's going.
So then let's do this. I think that we are three relatively smart and somewhat attractive men who can figure out potentially how we could still do this. What can we add into the NX version to make you either go out and buy the NX version and you've already bought the Wii U version, or to do an upsale and you have to pay an extra, I don't know, $20 DLC and somehow it becomes something else?
Honestly, if it's me, I'm giving it away for free.
Me too. Same thing.
I'm packing it in with the NX, and I'm not charging for it. And it's a free game. And it's a way to appease all sides.
And you know what? I take it a step further from that and take that same cross-buy mentality, the same way that it works across the entire eShop. Everything you buy on eShop, whether it's Wii U, like there is none of that anymore. There's no console-specific eShop. You go on, you buy it, and it works wherever the console can play it.
Yeah.
But if that game exists on another platform, Nintendo platform, then you own it there as well.
That's the thing that Nintendo does not do. So
it's the reason, honestly, with you guys, like that's the reason I don't buy Nintendo games digitally. Like I'm waiting for them to do that on virtual console games. I refuse to be buying virtual console games at this point because I know at some point I'm going to get burned by them coming back and say, guess what? All those. You've already bought Super Mario? Well, it works across everywhere. Like, I don't want to continue to buy it. Like, I'm done. I can't buy Super Mario 3 anymore.
Yeah.
But that's aside.
I think right now where we're at with this is, here's what we do. We'll wrap this up with a nice little bow right now before we move on to the next topic. So the idea is, what Justin basically laid out is ideally perfect. So we go with that. So we do all the gear, all that merch to get things hyped up, get the hype level going. We do the demo, because the demo is a fantastic idea. I think it's got to be done. We launched the game November 18th alongside Pokemon Sun and Moon. That's their sweet spot. That's the time they always do it. They have no holiday game. That's the game. When you buy it on the Wii U, it automatically carries over to the NX. I like the cloud save. They are talking about cloud saves. That's perfect. That's a way to get people off the Wii U and onto the NX. Especially the way this game sounds, you're not beating this game in a couple of months. This is a game that you're going to put your life into for the next year, easily. Yeah. There's going to be new stuff. I feel like this is almost Minecraft on some level for Nintendo, just with Zelda. And then when the NX launches, I think we do two things. I think you have... I don't know if you go with 2 SKUs for this model. I think you definitely give... yes, we do 2 SKUs, and here's the difference. So you charge... I don't know what the price is going to be. You charge one price, and you get your typical Wii or your typical NX with the Zelda packed into it, is what it is. We charge $50 more. Maybe I'd go $50 more. $50 more, and you get like a nice looking design. You know, either face plates on it or whatever. We don't know what the design looks like, but like, you know, I bought my Batman Arkham Edition. I got this cool looking Batman logo on it, all that stuff. I think you do something like that. I think that's what I feel like killed the Wind Waker edition, because there was nothing on it. Stupid Hyrulean scribble around the outside of the gamepad. And I was like, that's it? I'm not paying. You know, I would have bought it if it had something on there. I think you do something special edition. I think you make a really, truly special edition NX to go alongside. And then you give people options. You can buy that one or that one, but it don't matter. But I think you definitely need to have the free game packed in and go with it from there.
So here's what I like. I do love the fact that we're going with my idea to start off with. I think that's great. I think it was a solid plan, well executed. We used some whiteboards, some drawings. I felt smart. I love the fact I didn't think about you guys about the statement of just throwing it in for free. I love that idea. I think that is absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Because again, you're not feeling like you're getting screwed to pay twice. Yeah. You're kind of like 6 months ahead of everybody else. Your cloud saving, stuff like that. I kind of disagree, Bobby, with the SKUs, and the reason for it. Like, I understand what you're saying, but I want to make sure that the system has an attach rate enough to justify 2 SKUs. So what I mean by that is that we saw the Wii U had 2 SKUs, the white and the black, right? And there were not many whites that moved. Almost all were black. So now you've built something that you have shelf space for that you have to figure out a way to get rid of. Okay,
before we go further, let me explain what I'm talking about. So I'm talking about 2 SKUs, but I'm talking about one is a special edition, limited edition.
Okay.
Wii or NX. That's just a Zelda edition.
Okay.
Maybe you only make a million of these things, cool. That's it. Like you get your 3DSs when they put the new 3DS out. You had the Zelda edition, and then you had like the black and the red. And that was and the Zelda was limited edition. That's all you could get, and boom. So we do, like, let's say the NX is going to be black. So you do a black one that's just plain black, and then maybe for $50 more. I don't know if you want to do a price difference. That's neither here nor there. But on that different model, it's a limited edition. It's Zelda-centric. Maybe there's a painting, a link. I don't know what you do for the thing, but you make it look cool. A cool-looking special edition that separates the two, and then it's go. And then once they sell out, that's it. Then you're just on the one SKU, and that's all you're doing.
Yeah, so it's a limited run then. It's a short run, like limited. Okay, I thought you were meaning like 2 SKUs. No, I was like, whoa, that's a big drop for inventory and like.
No.
Listen, we're running Nintendo. We're not making it bankrupt, all right?
Yes, exactly.
We probably are.
Jeez.
By this point, we can not bankrupt this baby.
We're throwing in games. We're throwing in SKUs. Everything has to go. The eShops for free as well. And here, have a puppet of Miyamoto.
All right. So are we all good on that? Everybody come to an agreement with that?
Mr. Bean, you haven't spoken much?
I am satisfied.
Okay. All right. So the next topic we came with the heavy-hitting topics this week with Justin on here. So the next one is a lot of people realize, and I'm gonna lay a little backstory for everybody so they understand where this all went. And I took notes too because I didn't have a clue all the details of what everything was. But I kind of wanted to go into this. So in 1988, there is an engineer working for Sony who buys his daughter a Famicom system. When she's playing it, he's discouraged by the sound coming out of it. And he goes and says, you know what, I can do a better sound chip than what they have in it. On his own, nobody knows he's doing this. He starts tinkering and creating a sound chip. And every time he finishes, he goes to his boss with it. And the only one that knew about it was him and his boss. There were some employees there that knew that they didn't like what he was doing, and they chuckled at him and laughed at him, whatever. But he kept doing it. Finally, it got to a point where it was very good. His boss says, go talk to Nintendo. Let's see if we can make this do, because we can get some revenue off of this, and it would help, it'll help Sony out overall. Nintendo likes it, and Nintendo goes, you know what? Let's do this. So they go into a deal with Sony. Sony is going to manufacture these chips that they're going to put in the games for better sound quality. This is 1988. They do this. It's all go ahead. What happens is they do this, but they're also doing it. It's for the Super Famicom, and the Super Nintendo is where this is going to take place. They are using in Nintendo games NES cartridges, but the game plan is when we reach the Famicom, it's going to be full force, and we're going to go. What Nintendo gets is usage of the chips, full reign, go for it. What Sony gets is they start to go into development of a CD-based system where they're going to have rights to the games, and Nintendo is going to, they're going to make the games for it, but Sony's essentially for the CD games. Sony's going to have the rights to it. They're also going to sell music. They're also going to sell like educational programs, all for the CD drive. Nintendo has their cart-based. Move forward. Nintendo loves the idea, and they're like, this is great. So Nintendo starts doing research, and they realize this CD stuff is going to be pretty big. They look over at Philips because Philips is getting ready to put out a CD drive at the same time. Nintendo gets nervous. It's now 1991. They look at the deal and they realize, we gave up the farm for this. This is nuts. We're giving up all licensing rights to all these games. So if we look at the future is game companies aren't going to want to make games on our cartridges no more. They're going to make them on the CDs. We're going to lose complete rights to all this licensing agreements. We got a problem. So now they go to Philips and they start working a backdoor deal with Philips to kind of make a disk drive, similar to what Sony's doing. They get ready to launch. They go to CES. Nintendo shows off what's going to be the Super Famicom. Sony shows off what's going to be the Nintendo CD drive, whatever. But right after that, Nintendo goes to them and goes, we're not sure we want to do this. We're going to partner with Philips because essentially they do a better job than you guys, which basically pisses Sony off. Sony gets mad and goes, you know what? I'm out. They're leaving. They go to Sega, and they start working with Sega because they're like, if you're going to work with Philips, which is our rival, we're going to go work with your rival. So now Sega and Sony start working together. Nintendo and Philips are working together. The third parties get involved now, and the third parties go to Nintendo and go, this is madness. You guys are changing the systems on us too rapidly. We can't make games for all this. Please go back to Sony, go to Philips, work a deal to make CDs. They come together. That's what, if you guys ever remember, the satellite system, which was basically Nintendo, the Super Nintendo was supposed to sit on top of it, and there would be a disk drive. There was a plug that went in the back that plugged into a disk or to a cartridge that sat on top of the Super Nintendo. That was going to be the future. As time went on, they announced like there was going to be a Zelda game for it, there was going to be a Mario game for it, there was going to be a Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy VII. Everything was all go ahead. Nintendo realizes this is no good. We don't want to do this. We're out. So they just squashed the whole deal. They go, we're going to do now the Ultra 64. That's our next future. Sony kind of gets annoyed. Philips, what they got out of it was they got to make 4 games. They made 3 Zelda games and 1 Mario game. Sony goes off and goes, well, we got a lot of experience out of this, and that's what starts that down the path of the Sony PlayStation. Now, the way this all works out is Nintendo apologists will absolutely go, oh, Nintendo was getting screwed, that's why they backed out of the deal. That's the early story. The second story was when them 3 companies came back together, the third parties brokered all this pretty much, and they said, Nintendo, you'll have all rights to all games. Sony will have rights to music, movies, and to any educational programs. So I don't see how Nintendo gets screwed in this deal at the end of the day once this new plan comes together. They're getting what they... Because what happened was they started the deal with Philips in hopes that they can go back to Sony and get Sony to go, okay, we'll give you the licensing agreements. But Sony was like, no, that's not going to happen. And that's when they all broke apart. Then they wound up coming back together. So now I want to pick it up from this point. If we ran Nintendo, do we ditch Sony or do we stay together and work together with them? Now, we have the luxury of looking at what has happened in recent years and where the 2 companies have gone. It's weird. They're totally flip-flopped. You know, when Sony first started all this, Nintendo was the giant and nobody had a chance of stepping into the video game world. Now it's like Sony's a giant and Nintendo's the little dog. So what do you guys think? Would we back out of the deal or would we have stayed locked in?
I think we back out of I think even with hindsight is 2020, and looking back, I think we still go the way things ended up going. I think the other thing that doesn't really play into the business deal, but I think is really important to keep in mind, is that Nintendo was also focused on load times and making sure, like, they've always had that standard for quality, and understanding that the PlayStation was really, for a lot of people, that was the first time that many of us saw a loading screen. I remember seeing PlayStation for the first time going, what are we waiting for? This is horrendous. This is taking a long time. And I think that if there's any misstep, really, and at that point, it's that Nintendo didn't really capitalize on its advantage from that perspective. Not that that's really a big thing, because Sony did have, like, the PlayStation had a lot going for it, but it lost its handle on what do gamers care about? What are people finding valuable? And it's their time and waiting around, and the snappiness that came along with the cartridge-based systems. The other thing, too, is if we ran Nintendo, and at this point, what would we do? We start to tackle a couple of the things that the cartridges didn't do, as well as CD-based media. How do we get more information on these cartridges? How do we bring up that sound chip up to the standard of digital sound? Now, I mean, at that point, you're inventing new technology, but at that point, I say, Sony, you do your thing. That's one way to do it, but I think that what ended up happening wasn't necessarily just a result of Nintendo backing out of the deal with Sony. It's letting them do their thing and just blowing up with it. Nintendo didn't really tackle any of the, like, when you look at the product side by side and you're kind of like matching the specs, they didn't do enough to bolster the things that weren't quite as great on the Nintendo system, while continuing to blow up and emphasize the fact that there are advantages to cartridges that we all miss, and now we're getting back to, now that we've got solid-state drives and flash media and things like that, we're getting back to non-disc-based media. But, I mean, that's a 20-year gap, I guess. But for me, I say stay the course, but that doesn't mean that it's not an excuse just to let Sony walk away with the whole thing.
What do you
Justin,
think?
what do you think?
Yeah, what do you think, Justin?
Well, I think now that we've gotten our DeLorean, gone back to 1991, right, we begin changing the timeline. Doc, get in the car!
That was amazing!
My wife just died, dude. She just fell in love with you. Your wife is in trouble. I'm gonna get divorced, and she's moving to Canada. I can see it already.
There you go. Every Canadian should know how to do a Marty McFly impression. It's part of our training. So I think here's the thing. So I guess I'll take a step back. Interestingly enough, I actually moved away from Nintendo. I dropped the N64 in my teenage days because I wanted a video game console that was mature, that was guts, that I could kill things and there'd be yuck everywhere, right? And some amazing games. And that was for about a total of like 5 years of my life, and then I'm like, I'm out. I got to go back. I think I'm like Sean. I would stay the course, and here's why: is I think that if we went with Sony, we would be in the arms race, right? We would be in the graphic fidelity arms race, and that is that is not the place that Nintendo wants to be. Nintendo has never been graphical fidelity arms race. It's never been about specs, right? We even hear that resonating now with Reggie's statement about the NX will not be a console about specs. They've never been about that. Nintendo's primary purpose and I think their guiding principle for video game creation, at least in the last 20 years, is it fun? And I think that's the thing, right? Is it fun, and it can be appealing and broad enough to capture individuals, right? And I think the maturity of games that Sony brings to the roster, and I think back to the original PlayStation, Resident Evil, right? Parasite Eve, Final Fantasy VII, Crash Bandicoot, right? They're not like hard R's or maturity, but they're definitely outside of what I would call Nintendo's comfort realm.
Yeah. And
I think if you did that, you would push away the casual gamer crowd that we so much embraced back in the 2000s, the mid-2000s with the Wii, and is so important. I think all of a sudden, if this we create a Nintendo-Sony company, or essentially, so it's them against Microsoft. And I don't see either of those two giants being welcoming to others who are casual gamers, who are first-time gamers, who are able to bring stuff in their fold. I feel like that would be wiped away, and I think it's a very critical, not just critical marketing obviously from a business perspective, but I think a critical spot for us as an organization largely to be. I also would be scared of what it would do to the brands and the IP, right? So do I ever want to see like a high-fidelity Mario where I see like all of his facial hair, like, you know, Nathan Drake style? No.
Yeah, no.
So I think somewhere in that you lose. I think what would happen is that you lose what Nintendo is.
I think I actually go a step further and think you lose Nintendo almost altogether. I think eventually, like I would say that would have been the first step towards Sony just engulfing Nintendo, at least from a hardware perspective. Nintendo still has all their glorious IP and everything, but that's the risk that I'm really afraid of with that partnership, especially with we have to remember back in the 90s, like it's a Sony was the tagline, like Sony was the top piece of consumer electronics that you could buy. They were taking over the world at that time. Now it's a little bit different. They've kind of shifted PlayStation, but into consoles. Like PlayStation is their number one brand. But at the time, Sony was just on a roll. That was the absolute best TV you could buy, the best VCR, the best whatever.
Well, and I think the other thing, I think, Sean, you're absolutely right. The other thing we have to remember at this time frame is Nintendo is just coming out of like the slugfest with Sega that they have been going at for like 5 years.
Well, I think that's not to cut you off, but that's at that point, it's only Sony, Nintendo, Sega. Microsoft hasn't really come on the scene yet. No. So I think if we're from that perspective, Nintendo's looking at it going like, Sony has no clue what they're getting involved in. They don't know how to do video games, and these load times, people don't want that. Sega, they're on their last leg. We beat them down. So I think at that point, that's where Nintendo's thinking is that's why we don't need to go with Sony. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, no, I was exactly gonna say that. Like they're top dog, right? Like they've gone their rounds. They end up being the champion right now. Fantastic. These kids over at Sony don't know what's going on, and they don't have the pedigree of the history of games that we do. That's the other thing that Nintendo brings. Nintendo brings 30 years. I mean, now 30 years, but back at that point, 10 to 15 years of solid IPs and recognizable household brands, right? Are you gonna go play Are you gonna go play the Nintendo system, right? Like it wasn't you're gonna play video games; it was you're playing the Nintendo.
Even when you're playing PlayStation.
Even when you're playing PlayStation, you're playing the Nintendo, right?
Nintendo.
That was the brand, right? So and it is kind of hindsight, right? Like obviously, yes, Sony is right now the top dog. We get that. But I've always made the statement that I don't think Nintendo as a top dog is ever a good place for them to be. Because I think they get too comfy on their laurels. I like a scrappier, bolder, swing for the fence Nintendo. And sometimes they hit it and sometimes they don't.
They get too egotistical.
Justin, you brought up a point about the types of games that were on PlayStation versus on Nintendo. And I think, not to derail this conversation too much, but I think that way too much weight is given into the fact that Sony was CD. Because we have to remember that wasn't the only CD console available in and around that time.
Yeah, 3DO.
We all remember the Panasonic 3DO. So it wasn't necessarily just the fact that Sony came out with a CD-based system. That wasn't the thing that won for them. It was the partnerships that they created with Squaresoft at the time. Really, Final Fantasy VII is the thing.
And that's what I was going to say. Yeah. That, to me, is bigger. That's the biggest linchpin to all of this.
Yep.
Is Nintendo letting Squaresoft, that's who they were at the time, Squaresoft, walk away. Because that, to me, hurt them. That, to me, gave the Sony PlayStation credibility. Here's me. At the time, I think I'm 18, 19 years old, maybe 20 when it launches, right? So Sony PlayStation comes out, and I'm like, I don't want that piece of garbage. I don't want nothing to do with that. I'm Nintendo 64 all the way. I'm hardcore.
You and me.
And I'm going 110%. I played every single one of the Final Fantasies that hit the NES. And now all of a sudden, here comes Final Fantasy VII. It's not going to be 4. It's going to be called 7. And it's going to the PlayStation. And I immediately went, I'm buying a PlayStation.
Yeah.
And that was it. That's what sold me on it. Otherwise, I wanted nothing to do with that console.
The two games that made me literally cash in all of my Nintendo chips and move over to PlayStation was Final Fantasy VII and Metal Gear Solid 2.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Those were the two games, and interestingly enough, those both start off as Nintendo on Nintendo platforms.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right, and the licensing expired. But I mean, here's the thing, because your statement is, I mean, we're talking about it, but like the biggest risk that we're seeing, the risk is Final Fantasy VII. Yeah. Right, that's the thing we don't want to lose. But are we willing to risk it all on one game? Right, like.
And it's hard to foresee that kind of thing as well, right? You don't know how massive an impact Final Fantasy VII is going to be until it hits.
Well, I disagree. I think Nintendo is smart enough to realize this is a huge IP. This, and I think because a lot of it is just ego, I think, for Nintendo at this juncture. You know what I mean? Like, they're running things. They own it all. And they're just like, hey, you know, because I feel like what they should have been smart enough to do is when all those third parties come to them and beg them, hey, listen, please go work out this deal with Panasonic and Sony. I think at that point, Nintendo needs to go, well, what's so important that you guys want us to do that? And obvious, it's one thing, the cost to manufacture games. CDs were like a couple bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Cartridges were a minimum. Just to buy the cartridges, they were like 10 or 15 bucks. Then Nintendo puts their licensing fees on top of it. And by the time you're done, we were playing games for the Nintendo 64 for 70, 80 bucks every time.
Yeah.
I was paying more back in the 90s for an N64 game than I pay today for a Wii U game. That's insanity. You know?
But the interesting thing with that always is that quality, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that Nintendo was very stringent on, especially during the late 80s, right? Was their quality, right? They would only allow a distributor to put out so many games, and they had to be quality checked, right? That cartridge was not going to junk because really, you know, again, rewind that clock. Nintendo basically resurrected the video game industry after the Atari crash. So they have like this like big brother dad kind of complex on everything that they ran, that they were not willing to take that risk, right? And in a lot of ways, I kind of appreciate that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we rewind the clock. Look at where we are now. How many times have you seen? Oh, it's, you know, the latest game on Xbox or Sony drops, day one patch, y'all.
Yep.
And here's 3 hours of downloads.
Yep.
You know what? When I buy a game from Nintendo, guess how often I ever have to patch? Like never.
Yeah.
Unless it's a scheduled, deliberate patch like Splatoon where it's strategic.
Yeah, I agree.
Other than that, that's what they built, and unfortunately, that's part of the risk.
Well, see, and this is okay. So this is what I think. I think that when Nintendo, I think that if we ran Nintendo, this is the game plan. The game plan is no, we don't join with Sony, because I agree with what you guys are saying. I think that it's essentially a ticking time bomb. It's only a matter of time before we're done. And I don't think that partnership works out anyway. Like, ultimately, you hear a lot of people that go, oh my God, could you imagine if Sony just dealt with the hardware and Nintendo just deal with the games? Yeah, that's all well and good in the beginning. But eventually you got them two big egos clashing all the time, and eventually it just falls apart, I think. Because I think Sony is going to sit there and look at all the money that Nintendo's going to make off the games, and they're going to go, oh, this don't make no sense. We're doing all the hard work. We're doing all the hard work, and they're just reaping the benefits. This is nonsense. And then I think eventually, no matter what, this ship just tears apart, and it just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. But I think that Nintendo, as Nintendo, we need to be smarter with how we move forward in the future. We should have listened to the way. Like, I think that, like, charging companies $10, $15 for the cartridge is ridiculous. I think that that's something that should have come down. I think that I still hold strict to, like, you can only do 5 games a year. That's it. Sorry. That is what it is, because we want to have control over the quality. We want it to be a quality game. But I think that the reason why Sony was so appealing to Square was because I don't know the exact numbers. I always get this botched up. But it was 3 discs for Final Fantasy. And they said that if they put that game on the N64, you were looking at like 12 cartridges. Now, okay, that's fine. That's all well and good. But this is what blows my mind. Nintendo is the master of bringing things down.
Yeah.
Why in the world Nintendo did not sit down with Square and go, look, let us work with you. Let us help you. And we promise you we can get this down to a reasonable amount of cartridges. You just need to work with us, and let's figure out what needs to be done. I don't think, without a shadow of a doubt, that could have been fixed. And I could be wrong, and I could just have smoke pipe dreams. But I think that, like, I look at, like, what Mr. Iwata, you look at the stories of what he did for all these different like, he went in and rebuilt Earthbound Mother 2 from the ground up. Like, he went to Itoei and was like, you got garbage here, you need to let me fix all this. You look at this, you listen to the stories of this guy, of when Smash was going to hit, when Smash Melee was coming, and it was a bug fest. And he basically went in as president at the time and was working on the side to get this game fixed and read and coding and all that stuff to get it fixed, to get it to be able to launch, to become a launch title. Like, that's insanity to think that you have someone of that caliber working for you, that you don't sit there and go, you know what, this is your number one third-party developer at the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, these guys are top dogs at the time. You know, like, you've worked with them hand in hand all along the way. You got Super Mario RPG just came out, was huge. You built the role-playing genre up with them. I just fall back on that I feel like that's the game that started the trend and really turned things around for Sony and got the light on them. And I feel like if you can stop that from happening, I just think that Nintendo would just like, and I don't know because I wasn't there, but I feel like their ego got in the way and they were just like, oh, you want to go to them? Fine, go ahead. We don't care. We're good.
Yeah, I think it boils down to your comment, Bobby, of brokering a stronger relationship with third parties.
Yeah.
And keeping them in house, right? You know, here, let me talk to me about your game. What do you got? Oh, 12 cartridges. You know what? I may not be the expert, but I know my internals. I know we have some experts. I'm going to send a development team over, sit with you guys for like 5 days, and let's see what we can do to compress this thing down.
Yeah.
Right. Let's partner. Let's find a brokerage. Right. Where we can have that. I think that's really what Nintendo misses.
Yes.
Right. Is a good brokering relationship. Now we see that now emerging with the indie titles. Right. We see that approach actually very much with their indie titles.
Yeah.
But we don't see with the major studios again because the major studios felt like they got burnt and left.
Yeah.
But I think it comes down to brokering third parties.
But ultimately, that's their problem right now as well.
Yep.
That's the same old story that's going on for forever with them.
Yep.
Is, they were always hard on the third parties. They need to work and loosen those ties a little bit. I mean,
but doesn't that come down to specs too, though? Like, it's all well and good to say we don't really care about specs. We want to make the games fun. But ultimately, if the specs aren't on par with what developers are making games for, then you can't make games that are fun. So it does come down to the technology in these things. So equally as much as Final Fantasy VII had something to do with this whole situation, and I know that everything was just like racing forward as this is happening right before consoles are launching. But like, what if Nintendo, like maybe this is all in the hands of Philips? Like, ultimately, Nintendo didn't come up with a product that they were satisfied with Philips. But I mean, it wasn't like Philips and Sony were the only ones dealing with compact discs at the time. I wonder if they just landed with the wrong company, where Sony had a superior compact disc product where a better video game could be made, but maybe Panasonic. I mean, Panasonic is the one. In our Wii U's, it's a Panasonic built drive.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder, like, if not Sony, it's not just Philips. If not Sony, then maybe Panasonic or somebody else. I think that there's so many different avenues that this juncture has. It's more than just if Sony, then CD. If not, then cartridge. Like, if not Sony, then why not still another type of compact disc? And then all of a sudden, you still got the landscape and the platform that has the technology where Square can still say, okay, well, we weren't really partial to Sony, we were partial to their technology.
Yes.
Now that you're on par with that technology and we've been working with you forever, like, I think that changes everything.
Yeah.
I think
it's all about taking the wrong girl to the prom.
Exactly. Look at that.
Wow.
Who knows where we'd be right now? Maybe I would be the guest at this point coming in.
It all comes back around. So I think we're all in agreement that if we ran Nintendo, we would not partner with Sony. We would have walked away as well. I think also the way they handled it probably could have been done a little bit more classy. Again, it's the ego. It's the ego they had. Yamauchi, notorious for being nasty and brutal when it comes to business. So I can totally see him just thumbing his nose at Sony and just being like, "Screw you, we don't need you."
Well, they were just kicking everybody off to the curb, no problem. It's what like Sony again. It's only at the time we have to think about them coming as a newcomer in terms of consoles. Whatever, go for it.
Yeah,
we all would have done the exact same thing. Go try it.
Yeah,
see how it worked out with Sega. They're huge, and where are they now?
And Panasonic wasn't no slouch. You know what I mean? Panasonic was a big company as well. The 3DO didn't work at all. you know, and they had some decent ideas. You know, essentially they were just going to do like, hey, anybody can make a Panasonic 3DO, or a 3DO, not a Panasonic, but anybody can make a 3DO. Here's the technology, go for it. And you would have like 4 or 5 3DO. It was kind of like a Steam box that they were talking about.
It was like a DVD player. It was like a VHS. It was the same thing.
Yes.
Here's the technology, everybody can make it.
Yeah, and that's what they were going for. It just didn't work out, you know. Okay, so sounds good. You guys in agreement? You guys good with what we're saying?
It sounds like a great plan.
Let's wrap this up like we do on all our stuff. So we're not going to join Sony, but we just feel like we need to work better with our third party so that way they don't jump ship and go over to Sony. Because let's be honest, Sony is a threat. They have a lot of money behind them. They have a lot of backing behind them, and we can move forward with this and kind of curve this and keep it from escalating and getting out of control. So ultimately, that's what I feel like all of us are in agreement of. If we ran Nintendo, that's the way we would go with this. So that is all. Thank you guys for listening to us, and I hope you enjoyed this on iTunes or SoundCloud, or if you're watching us on YouTube. Justin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys. Anytime. It was fantastic. This is a great conversation. I love listening to you guys. You are literally one of my favorite podcasts to download every single week to listen to you guys chat about this. And I'm like in the car yelling along with you. I was like, no! That's a horrible idea. Why would you do that? Okay, Sean, I'll give you that one. It's not bad.
Thank you. But Bobby. No, Bobby, no. Sean, yes. Bobby, no.
Tell everybody where they can check you out and all that good stuff.
Sure. So if you want to just follow me, you can head over to Twitter. It's at Masson, Masson 23. And then every single week, you can find me doing some kind of ramblings on the internet, specifically at our show called At Nintendo or Nintendo Dads. And you can follow us on Twitter on at Nintendo Dads. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play. We're on YouTube, iTunes, all those things. Our handle is at Nintendo Dads, and both Sean and Bobby have been guests on our show, and we love this kind of Nintendo community that we're creating. So thank you guys very much for having me.
And I gotta say this: of all of Sean's guests on We the Gamer Cast, I have to I literally got choked up listening to your episode, and I don't, I do have a soft side, contrary to popular belief, but I literally was sitting in my office just like. Right here, just grabbed me by the throat, and I was like, "Oh man, am I gonna sit here and start crying in my office? Like, what the hell's going on?" But it was it was awesome. When you told the story about your dad, the Super Mario Brothers 2 showing up at your door, I was like, "Holy crap, this is awesome story!" And then the whole deal of getting your Super Nintendo, working a deal with your mom. Your mom was awesome, dude. That was such a great thing.
And that we kind of think about that, even as Father's Day has just passed. This is Monday when we're recording this. Obviously, sorry, the podcast magic is away, or the curtain's thrown away. But the stories you're hearing even from Father's Day those days, how important parents actually play in their kids' development of video games and love for, right? And if it wasn't for my mom and obviously my dad setting that game, but just kind of fostering, kind of being okay to be a little bit weird. A little bit different than every other kid, and enjoying the world that's inside this box, and just feeling that love and that passion for it. I definitely wouldn't be doing what I do now. So parents play such an incredible a role in that. So that's really important. But yeah, thanks. Yeah, that episode with Sean. After I finished it, I left and I felt cathartic. I was like, man, I felt like I probably should have brought a box of tissues but it was incredible, and just Sean has such a good way of just opening people up and having that conversation in a safe environment, and just fantastic.
He does.
I just sit back and let you guys just go, and it's okay. We're going here. Awesome.
Yeah, we're actually awesome. Sean and I are actually meeting up on Friday up in Edmonton with Zach. So I'm really afraid of what's going to happen there. So lots of tears. I've got Zach with a psychology degree. I've got Sean with whatever Sean does. I might be a mess by Saturday.
Possibly. And this is gonna get Sean's ego, but when I first went on the show, I didn't know what to expect. I had listened to one episode prior. A buddy of mine, Josh Brandt, was on there, and I was like, okay, I like the flow of this. I got to get on the show, and I messaged Sean, and he was like, yeah, we'll do it right away. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. And unlike Nintendo Dad, it's like a 4-month wait to get on the show. Sean was like, I can book you in an hour, man. I'm like, yeah.
It's funny, you guys, what are you guys doing this Saturday? No.
So I was like, I go on and I'm like, he don't really know me from Adam or anything, and I go on and I just don't shut up, and I'm like, and it gets done, and I'm like thinking to myself like, oh my god, dude, I just like talk forever with this guy, but he just like you said, he just sucks you in, makes you feel comfortable. And then, like, 2 seconds in, I was, like, off and running, and I was gone. Yeah. And it was a blast.
And then shortly after that, I grab a rag and ask you if it smells like chloroform. Now that you feel safe.
Yeah. Sean, tell people where they can find you at.
Oh, my God. They can find me on the Twitter at Sean Capri, like Connery. Wait, why do I mess this up now? I can't even say this. It's Sean Capri. Good Lord. I know, well, you keep messing me up with new things that Capri is like. I don't know.
Sean like Capri. Sean like Capri.
See?
Sean like Capri.
I know.
Sean like Bean, Capri like the space juice box.
There you go.
Oh, good God. Yes, I am on Twitter. You can find me there. I talk a lot.
He also has a podcast called We the Gamercast, which I plugged a million times. And he also writes for We the Nerdy, which I'm actually started to do.
Welcome abroad.
It was officially brought on board today. I'm going to do a Nintendo-centric article. Probably like once every other week or once a week, depending on what my time allows. So follow me, Instagram, Twitter, at Nintendo Gurus. Also check out my YouTube channel, The Nintendo Guru. That is all. Peace out, Cub Scout.
ABZ you later. It's Canadian edition.
Yes, it is. What up, A? What up, A?
I think it's Winnipeg.
Winnipeg. Winnipeg.